Have you ever noticed that every few years, a new technology comes along that everyone says will change the world forever? Investors rush in, headlines explode across the internet, billionaires make bold predictions, and suddenly it feels like the future has already arrived. Well, right now, that technology is artificial intelligence. But what if I told you that some of the smartest people in technology and finance are starting to believe that the AI boom we're seeing today is beginning to look a lot like another famous phenomenon, one that changed the world, created massive fortunes, and also left many people disappointed? And strangely enough, the company at the center of this comparison isn't even an AI company. It's SpaceX. Welcome back to Pulse AI. I'm Nova, and today we're diving into a fascinating story that is making waves across Silicon Valley and Wall Street. Some analysts, investors, and technology experts are starting to rewrite the narrative around the AI bubble by comparing it to SpaceX. And the conclusions they're reaching might completely change the way you think about artificial intelligence, tech stocks, and the future of innovation. To understand what's happening, we first need to talk about hype. Every major technological revolution begins with excitement. The internet had its hype phase. Smartphones had their hype phase. Electric vehicles had their hype phase. And now AI is having its moment. Over the last few years, we've seen AI become the hottest topic in technology. Companies have rushed to integrate AI into their products. Investors have poured billions of dollars into AI startups. Major corporations are spending record amounts on AI infrastructure, data centers, and specialized chips. Everywhere you look, AI seems to be the answer to everything. But whenever a technology becomes this popular, people start asking an uncomfortable question. Is this genuine transformation, or is it a bubble? That's where SpaceX enters the conversation. For years, SpaceX was viewed as an incredibly ambitious company with goals that sounded almost impossible. Reusable rockets, massive satellite networks, human missions to Mars. Many critics dismissed these ideas as unrealistic dreams. Yet SpaceX kept delivering results. Launch after launch, milestone after milestone, the company gradually transformed skepticism into belief. What's interesting is that SpaceX didn't rely on hype alone. It built real infrastructure. It solved difficult engineering problems. It created technology that generated actual value. And over time, the market rewarded that progress. Now, some experts are using SpaceX as a lens to evaluate today's AI industry. Their argument is surprisingly simple. A true technological revolution isn't measured by excitement. It's measured by infrastructure, execution, and long-term value creation. When people compare AI to SpaceX, they're essentially asking whether today's AI companies are building something as durable and transformative as SpaceX built in the aerospace industry, or whether they're simply riding a wave of enthusiasm. And that's where the debate becomes incredibly interesting. Supporters of AI argue that we're witnessing one of the most important technological shifts in human history. They point to AI systems that can write, analyze data, create images, generate software code, and even assist scientific research. They believe we're still in the very early stages of an enormous transformation that could reshape nearly every industry. From healthcare and education to manufacturing and finance, AI has the potential to dramatically increase productivity and unlock entirely new capabilities. In this view, the billions being invested today are not signs of a bubble. They're signs of preparation for a future that will look radically different from the present. But critics see things differently. They point out that many AI companies are being valued at extraordinary levels despite limited revenue. They argue that businesses are adopting AI faster than they can effectively monetize it. Some investors worry that expectations have become unrealistically high. History offers plenty of examples where revolutionary technologies were real, but investor expectations became detached from reality. The internet is perhaps the best example. The internet absolutely changed the world. But during the dot-com boom, countless companies received enormous valuations before proving sustainable business models. When reality eventually caught up with expectations, many of those companies disappeared. The technology survived and thrived. The hype did not. This distinction is extremely important. A bubble doesn't necessarily mean the technology itself is worthless. Sometimes it simply means expectations have risen faster than practical implementation. And that's exactly why the SpaceX comparison is gaining attention. SpaceX demonstrated that genuine innovation requires patience. Building rockets wasn't easy. Developing reusable launch systems wasn't easy. Creating a global satellite network wasn't easy. Each breakthrough required years of engineering, testing, failures, and persistence. Some analysts now believe AI faces a similar challenge. The technology is impressive, but turning that technology into sustainable economic value may take longer than many investors expect. Another factor fueling this debate is the enormous amount of money flowing into AI infrastructure. Companies are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on data centers, specialized processors, cloud computing systems, and energy resources to power AI models. This investment resembles the construction of a new technological foundation. Supporters see it as necessary preparation for the future. Skeptics worry that companies may be overbuilding before demand fully materializes. Again, the SpaceX comparison becomes relevant. When SpaceX invested heavily in launch infrastructure, there was a clear long-term vision connected to measurable goals. The question now being asked is whether every AI company possesses that same clarity. Can they generate enough value to justify the enormous spending? Can they create products people will consistently pay for? Can they build lasting businesses rather than temporary excitement? No one knows the answer with certainty, and that's what makes this story so fascinating. What's especially interesting is how investor behavior is evolving. A few years ago, simply mentioning AI in a company presentation could trigger excitement in financial markets. Today, investors are becoming more demanding. They're asking harder questions. Where is the revenue? Where is the profitability? Where is the competitive advantage? How difficult is it for competitors to replicate the technology? These questions are pushing the industry toward a more mature phase. Instead of rewarding promises alone, markets are increasingly rewarding execution. And that's precisely the lesson many people associate with SpaceX. Execution matters. Ideas are important. Vision is important. But execution is what ultimately creates lasting value. Some of the biggest winners in the AI era may not be the companies generating the loudest headlines today. They may be the organizations quietly building infrastructure, improving efficiency, solving real-world problems, and creating sustainable business models. In other words, the companies acting more like SpaceX than social media sensations. There's another reason why this comparison is capturing attention. SpaceX succeeded because it dramatically reduced costs. Reusable rockets change the economics of space launches. Similarly, AI's long-term success may depend on reducing costs and increasing accessibility. Today's most advanced AI systems often require enormous computing power and significant investment. Over time, technological improvements could make AI cheaper, faster, and more widely available. If that happens, AI adoption could accelerate far beyond current expectations. In that scenario, Today's infrastructure spending may eventually look justified. But if costs remain high and returns remain uncertain, concerns about overinvestment could grow stronger. That's why the next few years are likely to be crucial. The AI industry is moving from a phase dominated by imagination into a phase dominated by results. The market wants proof. Businesses want measurable returns. Consumers want useful applications. And investors want sustainable growth. The companies that can deliver those outcomes will likely thrive. Those that cannot may struggle regardless of how exciting their technology appears. When we step back and look at the bigger picture, perhaps the most important takeaway is this. The comparison between SpaceX and the AI industry isn't really about rockets or artificial intelligence. It's about how society evaluates innovation. Every transformative technology goes through periods of excitement, skepticism, investment, and uncertainty. The challenge is separating temporary hype from long-term value. SpaceX eventually convinced many critics because it repeatedly demonstrated progress. The AI industry now faces the same test. Can it move beyond impressive demonstrations and create lasting economic impact? Can it transform industries in measurable ways? Can it justify the enormous investments being made today? Those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is clear. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a technological story. It's becoming one of the biggest economic experiments of our time. And whether the current AI boom becomes remembered as a revolutionary turning point or an overhyped bubble may depend on what happens next. The companies that focus on execution, infrastructure, and real-world value creation could emerge as the ultimate winners. Just as SpaceX transformed aerospace by delivering results, the future leaders of AI may be the organizations that quietly build the foundations of tomorrow while everyone else is focused on today's headlines. And that's why more people are beginning to rewrite the AI bubble narrative through the lens of SpaceX. Not because the two industries are identical, but because they share a fundamental lesson. Real revolutions aren't powered by hype alone. They're powered by persistence, execution, and the ability to turn bold ideas into reality. What do you think? Is AI experiencing a bubble, or are we witnessing the early stages of the next great technological revolution? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update from Pulse AI. I'm Nova, and I'll see you in the next one.